Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back or welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. As I'm recording this, it is a chilly, gray, rainy day here in San Diego. And I've really been thinking about this topic for quite a while. I know that we've talked about mediumship readings and we do the Ask a Medium Anything episodes. And if you've experienced a reading yourself, you know more about it. But this topic is a little bit different. In today's episode, I really want to share with you some things that I have learned from my connection with the spirit world, from spirit people themselves, and from mediumship. I just want to reveal some truths to you about the afterlife and some advice that spirit people have for us that's been really meaningful and profound in my life over these years. And in some ways, the side of mediumship that maybe we don't talk about as much, because of course people want to hear from their own loved ones and those messages and guidance, and people love to hear about mediumship in general, but we don't always talk about some of the additional lessons or understandings or revelations that mediums can have either through our work with individual spirit people, through our work sitting with our guides, whatever it might be. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of these sections, I guess, have titles and some of them don't, but I hope that you will really find this inspiring, informational. I hope that you'll take some of the advice on board for yourself and maybe learn a little bit more about what our spirit people on the other side want to say to some of the most commonly asked questions. The first topic that I want to address is this question that we so often struggle with as humans, this idea of, is this right for me? Like, is this the right job? Am I on the right path? Am I making the right choice? Am I in alignment with what I'm supposed to do? Is this the right thing for me? Is this my true purpose? What's my true purpose? All of those questions encapsulated. As humans, we can get so caught up in this idea of, is this the right choice A or B? And the truth is, following the true calling of our soul in any given moment is a long-term project. It's not just down to one choice we make or one path that we take versus don't. There is value in continuing to explore this question, of course, as we grow and change over the years, but not in a fear-based or attempting to avoid all discomfort intention. And the answer you're looking for is just not so black and white. It's not so all or nothing. And really, a lot of the time we are trying to avoid any discomfort that we can kind of pre-mitigate by saying like, well, is this my true soul path, for example? But again, it's just not that simple. If something is for you, it will continue to call to you. Even if it's over your entire life, if it's over years, if life takes you, for example, in a different direction for a little while, that call might be kind of far in the background, riding in the back seat, right, for a while, but it'll always rise up in you again. It'll always cycle back around to speak to you again or to invite you again. If something's meant for you, it will continue to beckon you, nudge you, tickle you in your curiosity, right? So let me be clear. There are definitely things that we can engage in that are not healthy or not ideal for us, but we do have the ability to use our struggles to help us get clear on what we want, what we need, or even who we are. So even difficult scenarios, experiences, difficult things that come up in our lives can work towards our highest and greatest good. I'm going to talk about this for one more second, and that actually brings me right to my next topic that I want to talk about. So when you're thinking about or wrestling about this idea of, am I on the right path or is this right for me? It's really more about those small intentional choices that we're making for ourselves day to day. It's not about what the world thinks we should do. It's about that inner nudge, that curiosity, and The other thing I just want you to consider that the spirit world highlights to me all the time is sometimes our job in the world, and particularly in Western countries, I know this is not the same in every culture, for example, we tend to be so work focused and people feel like, oh, I want to be working, my primary job as the purpose of my soul. Some people, that's just not the way it works. Some people, their job is just the job that they do that they're good at, but their soul's purpose or their spiritual pursuit is in a different area of their life. It might be a hobby. It might be, something they do gain income from, but it might be just something on the side or something that they do in a less primary way. So don't think that just because you have a job, there's lots of ways we can bring our, woo-woo side or our spiritual side into any job, I believe. But just suppose you have a job as like an accountant and you're really wanting to read cards and work with spirit, for example. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can have your day job and still do this other thing that feels so delicious and expansive to you. And who knows where that path will lead, but it doesn't mean you have to quit your day job. So just wanted to add that on to my notes here. Okay. So like I was saying, of course, there's things that like are just, we know are not good for us. But when we are pursuing a path that's not healthy for us, maybe we're, engaging in unhealthy behavior, let's just say, it doesn't mean that we can't make a different choice. We can't get clear, get healthy for ourselves. And we do as humans, one of the special qualities about us is that we have this ability to kind of overcome adversity and to use our struggles to help us not only get clear on what we want, but sometimes even move in a totally different direction. So even difficult things that we experience that we might feel like are off our path, or we might feel like, why the heck is this happening to me? I'm trying to do this other thing, right? All of those things can be used to the benefit of our soul, to our growth, to our expansion, and for positive and greatest good as an end result. And this leads me right into what I want to say next. Another question that is so common that people ask of their loved ones on the other side that the loved ones do address is this idea of, does everything happen for a reason? Our human nature is to want to make sense of everything and anything, and particularly the very worst things that happen in our lives. I mean, most of the time it's the worst things that we're trying to make sense of, not the best things. We're not trying to say, oh, what did I do right that I suddenly won this $50 lottery? We're not really scrutinizing the good things, right? The little bonuses that come our way, but the things that we might judge as bad, the hard things, the difficult times. Does everything happen for a reason? And over again, the spirit world has helped me understand everything does not happen for a reason. It's really, again, our human nature that wants to make sense of tragedy. But the truth is, this world is chaotic and some things just happen. Yes, there's divine order in a lot of things, but then there's also this chaotic world that we're thrown into with other people's free will choices. And sometimes those free will choices are unhealthy and we can just kind of get caught in just really unfortunate timing, for example, or caught in someone else's bad choices. It doesn't mean that for a reason that is happening to us, like as a punishment or as, some karmic thing on our soul. It's really not like that. Most of the time when tragedy happens, it is because this is a chaotic world. And while there might be some like quote unquote contributing factors some of the time that help us understand some aspects of why this might have happened or how the soul has grown from it, for example, many times there's no answer at all that would satisfy our human nagging desire of, but why did this have to happen? This has been communicated to me particularly through really challenging passings. And I'm thinking of one young person in particular who passed tragically in a vehicular accident. They were riding a motorcycle, and the other person who was never brought to justice, there is some significant evidence that perhaps that person was under the influence of a substance. And my client, who was the person on the motorcycle, he actually was explaining to me because his family was in such pain over his unexpected passing. He wanted them to know in this reading that, he hadn't made any mistakes in driving, that he was a very good driver, that he was being very safe. And all of those things were true about him, as everyone had known. And they really just wanted to know, but what's the reason for this happening to him? Why did this have to happen to him? And there truly is no answer that's going to satisfy that. So some of the things they do often bring around this is this idea that life is incredibly fragile. It's why we have this idea of like every day is a gift. Every day that we're here is a blessing. Make the most of it. That those types of, which often sound cliche now, but they're really not. Life is incredibly fragile. Sometimes just the wrong place, wrong time type of accident can take someone where in another instance, it might not take someone else. Doesn't mean that there is some cosmic reason for it. And please don't think of it as punishment. They've told me over and over again, that's just not the way it works. That's too black and white. And there's just so much more going on at all times. Yes, we can use tragedy to become stronger for it, make it purposeful in our lives and in the world, but it doesn't mean we're going to always be able to boil it down to a reason why someone becomes unwell, why someone crosses over, why one life is experienced in one way and someone else has a more challenging appearing life. They just continue to tell me over and over and over, it doesn't work like that. You're oversimplifying it. Everything doesn't happen for a reason. It's a nice greeting card sentiment, but some things in this world are chaotic and just happen. What's important to know is that they're okay on the other side, even if their passing was tragic, even if it makes no sense, even if it cannot be explained, seems like unsolved, quote unquote, seems unfair, or seems even too soon, defies all logical explanation. Just know that they are still okay on the other side, that they have processed their passing and understand. I won't even say they understand the why of why it happened, but they understand the details around it. And their soul is not harmed, even by the most challenging of passings. But they do invite us to soften that question a little bit or try to release looking so hard for such a pinpointed answer, and that it's okay to accept that this world is chaotic, life is fragile. And while we can use terrible things to grow us, to strengthen us, to sometimes inspire us in a whole new direction, is that the reason that this terrible, for example, loss of a child happens so someone can go on and write a book and be successful? Of course not. That's ridiculous. Sometimes things just happen. So I know I'm really hammering on this one, but I just really want you to know it's not like everything happens for a reason, and you need to be really pining and painfully seeking what that reason is in your own life or for your own person. They really encourage us to not lean so hard on that question and lean more into the presence of them, the understanding that they are still with us, just in a different way, because people can just really miss a lot of life searching for these really tough answers that just we're probably never going to completely understand while we're on this side anyway. The next thing I want to talk about is this idea of free will. They, meaning the guides, spirit world, spirit people, they can nudge us, they can put things across our path, but we still have this free will choice to accept or ignore things. Oftentimes, and this shows up in different readings in different ways based on what my client in the session has been thinking about and what their spirit person or people on the other side want to address, for example. Sometimes I will have a client that has the thought or the sentiment. They don't normally tell me. I really don't like my clients to tell me anything at all. I just like to work and see what comes up. And their loved ones, I'm thinking of one recent person, and their loved one was saying, my person here needs to know that they have their own free will. I'm not going to just act as, an in-between for everything and bring them friends and bring them a job and bring them a partner and bring them happiness. They have to put their free will effort into this, right? So just know that, yes, our spirit guides care about us. They're there to support us. They're there to encourage us, to nudge us, to sometimes place opportunities across our path, but they're not going to take control of you, usurp your free will, and make you go to a meeting that you're not going to go to. Do you know what I mean? Who knows what could come of that meeting? Maybe your love of your life is working at that restaurant, for example, or also having a meeting at that restaurant. We don't know. So they can kind of line things up or orchestrate things in that way, but they can't take control of your free will and make you do something that you don't want to do. Now, there are very rare instances. I'm sure we've heard of lots of stories about, I'm thinking of one in particular that was a story of a car accident, and this person felt the presence of their dad and then saw an angel and kind of woke up on the side of the road outside of the car and they didn't even know how they got out of the car. So there are these miraculous stories of someone being saved from tragedy or swept out from a bad situation. But by and large, we have free will. It's one of the special blessings, double-edged sword blessings of coming into incarnation as a physical human being. We have to make choices. We get to choose, what's behind door number 1 or what's behind door number 2, for example. And these choices unfold the path ahead of us, right? And again, like we were talking about in that first part of the topic, when we're talking about being on our truest path, right? It's the choices day to day, the unfolding, the free will opportunities. Go to that talk that you heard about that's talking about spiritual things, or decide to, take a nap instead. There are little opportunities placed across our path, so much more than we realize. So if you've ever had the thought, I don't want to say when, because I know this is not true for everybody, but if you've ever had the thought, I'm thinking of someone else, a client that I love dearly, who is constantly wanting her loved ones to put her next partner across her path and saying, like, you guys bring me someone. Where is my person? Where is my person? But then doesn't want to engage in like dating activities, doesn't want to be social, doesn't put themselves out there. So over and over, the spirit people and the guides are reminding us that we are free will participants in all of the choices that we make, even when it feels like we don't have a choice in a situation. We do have some micro choices. We can choose how we think about it. We can choose how much we think about it. We can choose, there are micro choices in there, even for things that seem outside of our free will. But loved ones are not going to come over the top of your free will and force you together with a person because that's what they want. It's just not how it works. So stop asking them to. No, you can ask. I mean, we can ask for anything we want, but just know that if you're asking for something, if you're making a request, you then would be best advised to pay attention for the signs, the nudges, it reminds me of that old story about the person drowning in the water who is a person of faith, and the boat comes by and says, "Oh, let us rescue you. Get in the boat." And they say, "Oh no, God's going to save me." And then, the next divers come in and they say, "We're here to save you. Let's get on this raft and we're going to save you." And they go, "Oh no, God's going to save me." And then the helicopter comes in and same thing. "Come on, get up in this ladder. We're going to save you." "Oh, God's going to save me." And then when the person gets to heaven, they said, "Why didn't you save me?" And God, or their loved ones, or whatever you believe, says, "Well, we sent you the boat, we sent you the raft, and we sent you the helicopter. And what did you want? Like, what did you think we were going to do to save you?" So my guidance, I guess, here is just be available for those little nudges, those synchronicities. When you've been thinking about something or wondering in your mind or thinking, "Oh, I'm so curious about my own spirituality or my own gifts." And then you come across a seminar with someone that you like their book, for example, and you think like, "Oh, but that's not for me." Why not for you, right? So following those signs and synchronicities and little nudges, even if you've just been thinking about something and then you're at a coffee shop and the person ahead of you in line, you hear them having a conversation about that thing. Maybe there's no opportunity being offered in that moment, but it's letting you know, okay, Spirit's hearing this too. My loved ones are hearing this too. Guides are hearing this too. Cooperative components are coming my way. This is in the energy around me. This really is going out in my thoughts, in my intentions, in my actions. So just be aware that our free will is multi-layered, and it comes in many more ways than we often think, I guess is how I want to say it. Okay. The next thing that is one of my favorite things that they share with me, it's so incredibly beautiful. Let me paint a little bit of a picture for you. This just happened recently. And again, every session's different. So this doesn't necessarily come across in every session because often the information is based on the need of my client's soul or the need of my spirit client's soul and what needs to be communicated. But I'm thinking of someone recently who their dad was passing away. He had been in hospice and they were all trying to get there. His condition kind of accelerated at the end and there wasn't very much time. And he also wasn't the most open to things of a sensitive nature, right? He was very masculine presenting. He was kind of that old-fashioned guy's guy. He didn't really like to talk about emotions. Loved his family and let them know that, he was a wonderful dad and grandpa and person in the family, so very beloved, but wouldn't be the first one talking about like angels or any of that stuff as a person. So when he was communicating from the other side, he helped me understand that his family, who I was working with, just all had this mishmash of different feelings about his final moments. There was 5 or 6 of them in the group I was working with. One didn't get to make it there. One was out of the country. One had been there the whole time and had just like gone home for a shower. The other 2 were there on the phone and trying to help everyone else get there. And he wanted them to know that even though he wasn't conscious, because one of them that had been there made it back just kind of like at the last moment, or one of their adult kids made it back at the last moment, and he was no longer conscious, but he was in the process of transitioning. And it was so beautiful because the way he communicated it, and this is just one example of many where this happens, he said, you know, my great granddaughter got there just in the final moments, and I felt her energy come into the room like this beautiful fresh breeze that she is in all of our lives. She was a miracle baby, and we all really love her. And the family validated that, yeah, there were complications in getting this young lady here, but she made it in the nick of time. And he just said, even though he wasn't conscious, his soul recognized her energy in the room. His soul felt the loved ones around him and was receiving all of that love, all of those, sometimes words out loud that they were speaking to him, sometimes just emotions that they were kind of sharing from their heart or just feeling in those moments. And he also was aware of those people that were trying to get to him from the other places and said, oh yeah, I was feeling their love. I was feeling their thoughts. I received all of their kind words and all of the love they wanted to come in and give me. I even received all of the prayers of my wife's church members because she had been asking them secretly and quietly to pray for me because she knew I wouldn't like everyone to know, you know, my business. So she did this kind of quietly, and she was so astounded that he received all of those prayers. And we don't often talk about it, all of that as energy, but it really is. And they've shown me over and over and over again that they receive it as energy. They receive it as love, and their soul's receiving it in that moment. And then when they cross over, I believe they actually get to feel and see and experience all of that love, almost like if you were to receive, this is oversimplifying it for sure, but if you were to receive like the most beautiful, heartfelt love and kindness letter in the mail, for example, where just you received all of their sentiment, all of their emotion, all of the wonderful things that they were trying to share. It's almost like that, where as they transition, they just receive this almost like chorus of energetic love and support and compassion and prayer, and those send healing, whatever version of it is, they receive it all as this wonderfully uplifting, positive love for them. And it doesn't matter, as it turns out over the years, they've shown me, it doesn't matter if you said it out loud or if you just thought it. It doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, because it matters, but it makes no difference, I should say, if you were physically in the room, praying, offering healing, saying kind words, or if you were 1,000 miles away and couldn't get there and were thinking it or sending it by phone, or just, you know, holding onto it in your heart and wishing them well. And they explain that they receive it still that way on the other side. So once they cross over and they're over there, whether it's for a day or 100 years, anytime we're thinking about them, telling stories about them, talking about them, you know, you ever have like someone you love on the other side and you just keep a little picture, and every time you see that picture, you're like, love ya, thinking of ya, love ya, whatever it is. I know some people keep voicemails in their phone. So anytime you're thinking of them, even if it's a brief moment, they receive all of that as positive love and energy and just wonderful deliciousness for them. So even when you're, you know, sending thoughts and prayers, whether the person's on this side or the other side, their soul still receives all of that. And they're always excited to share that. It really means so much. And I think often we're so confused about that separation, right? That illusion of separation that we're always talking about. We're so programmed to think there is separation between us and the spirit world when there's really not. It's an unseen world within our world, but we don't know, like, do they know I say prayers for them every day? Do they know that I look at their picture? Do they know that I say I love you and good night every single night? They definitely know, and they receive all of it. So If it feels good to you, keep doing it. You don't have to do it out loud. You don't have to do it publicly. You can, but you can also just do it privately. They sometimes even will. There was one recently, and this person often drove by a military cemetery, and they had a person who was a military member that had passed away that was in a totally different cemetery in a different part of the country. And every time they passed this nearby military cemetery, they would think of that person, and they would just kind of, not even necessarily in a formulated thought or words, but just think of that person and kind of love them, or let the feeling of love rise up in them. And that person in that session even articulated that, oh yeah, they drive by this military cemetery all the time, and they always think of me, and they always send me love, and I receive that love, and I accept that love, and we still love each other very much. So don't think that that sentiment, that energy, that love, that healing, that prayer is wasted. It's not. They receive all of it. And it's one of the things I wish that I could show you guys differently, is the way I perceive it in my mind's eye and the way I feel it in the energy. It's just like the most beautiful, warm, comforting, energetic hug, even if it's from someone that you had misunderstandings with when they were here. Because, that's actually my next point, is the life review, because they have this life review that really does help them understand things differently. So to wrap up that last point, keep sending love to their photo, keep sending love to the thought of them, to them, however they pop into your mind. Send them love, send them prayers. They are okay. They are still with you, and they do receive all of that. Even if you don't like the word love on there, maybe it's good thoughts, maybe it's celebration, whatever it is. Maybe it's just, hey, you mean something to me. But just keep doing it if it feels good to you. They receive all of it, and they often express how much they like it. So I want to talk also about how the life review works. I might have talked about this before, just because I think it's so important, and it was so profound to me in my own learning. Very early on in this work, I was taught by the other side a different idea about what the life review means and how it shows up for them. I've heard different versions through different mentors over the years, and it's been fascinating to me how it aligns with the way I received the understanding of it, just as a little extra validation for me in my work. Many of us in our youth are taught that there's a heaven and there's a man at these gates, the pearly gates, and he has a book. Sometimes he's called St. Peter, sometimes he's called other things, but there's a book about all the terrible and maybe not terrible things you've ever done in your life, and you will be judged, and it's like this heavenly bouncer who knows, Santa, who knows if you've been naughty or nice, and is going to decide if you're in the club or out of the club. They've shown me over and over again, this is not how it works. Not at all, not even close. That we're not met with judgment. We're met with love. We're met with kindness. We're met with understanding, with compassion, and we're assisted in our transition by our loved ones, by angels, by guides, by that loving source energy, by whatever name you like to call it. So it's not a scary journey to go there, and it's pretty instantaneous. We're either in the body or out of the body. We're either physical or non-physical, and there's not in between. But the life review itself, instead of being, the man at the gate who's going to tell you all the things you ever did, instead it's more experiential, is the way that they've shown it to me, where they essentially, again, I'm going to complain about the words because the words are not quite right, but they almost go back through their life, kind of like a review, which is probably why they're using that word. But they go back through and almost stand in the place of anyone that they ever created an emotion in, positive or negative. So just imagine going back, from the time you're coming into this world, through every encounter, every emotion that you ever created in any other human being, and getting to feel it firsthand, getting to understand how they felt, both positive and challenging. So if you've been a Mother Teresa of all of us, then probably your life review is wonderful and fantastic, and you get to feel how much love and compassion and safety you imparted on other people. If you have been a terrible person, you got to feel all that too. So it is why the do unto others rule is still the golden rule. They still encourage us to live our lives in a way of integrity and do no harm and don't intentionally hurt others, because we're going to have to feel that ourselves. And it is so profound to me and really helped me understand this idea about if we've had a challenge with someone that's on the other side, right? It's not that they're going to get punished in the human way that we think about it on this side, but they will be accountable in that they will have to feel every emotion, every sentiment, everything that they created, that they caused in us or in someone. So they're not off the hook in that way. It's just different. And so many times I've even sat in group meditation with groups of mediums and asked some of these questions. And a lot of times the answer that comes back is kind of, but it's different. So I think our human understanding of these things is just so limited. But when someone has that version of a life review, then they truly do understand, for example, how they could have been different as a parent, how what they said or did or didn't do deeply affected their kiddo, for example, for the rest of their life, or in this one area of their life in particular. Maybe it's so hard because I keep thinking of specific readings, and I try to be really private with my sessions unless someone's given me permission to tell their story. And in other cases, I do try to change some of the details so no one's identifiable in the story. And I stick really true to that. So if a story I tell resonates with you, please just know that it's because we have these resonant emotions with one another or similar situations sometimes that arise in our lives. But I'm thinking of this one. It was, again, a group. It was the mom that was on the other side, and she was a teacher in this world and a wonderful, celebrated, amazing school teacher. I think she did the drama program at the school too, and kids loved her. She was like the favorite teacher of the whole town for years and years and years. It's kind of a small town. And she was communicating from the other side, and she said, yeah, but I didn't realize all these other children and students got this version of me, and my kids at home got a disengaged, tired, lower bandwidth version of me and didn't get the praise and didn't get the compliments. Instead, I was critiquing the things they wrote and trying to make them better short story writers instead of acknowledging them and really seeing them. And I now understand so deeply. And there were several of this woman's children. She had some biologic and had adopted some. And she was coming through and speaking to them individually and saying, to the one on my left, I know you really needed more time and attention from me and more praise. The next one, I know you really needed me to show up and listen to you and not always try to fix your problems. The next one, I know you needed me to not always tell you what to do. I know you experienced me as very bossy and demanding, and I'm so sorry. So it's really beautiful to see how it applies, this idea of the life review and the understanding. There's no perfect people. So all of us are going to, we've all, I'm sure, hurt someone's feelings at some point or did something not so nice at some point. But how beautiful is it that we can, whether it's in a reading or in a dream or however, we can take responsibility for some of that. And we can know that if there is someone on the other side that we've had a challenge with, or maybe we didn't get to know them and we feel like we should have gotten to know them, for example, they do really know how they made us feel back then, how it affected us through our lives, what we needed or didn't need from them, and what they can do now, which is usually an apology or just an acknowledgement of the understanding of it. So that is how they've explained to me that the life review actually works. It's more of an experience than talking to, for example. It's just not in the way that we understand it. And again, it goes back to this programming that we have, these things that we're taught and told through culture, and usually in some effort to control us or our behavior or our thoughts or ideas, right? So they often come with details about the life review or about what they understand now as a result of that life review, but it doesn't involve punishment in the way that we think about it here. So hopefully that helps open your mind even just 1 inch wider about your own loved ones. The other thing I want to really highlight that they often share in different ways, but usually with evidential details, with specific details about how they're doing this. They do truly know what is going on with us in our lives. They do spend time with us. Many of our loved ones on the other side put little hellos across our path. Not necessarily all of them do, but many of them are putting little hellos, putting little winks from them, acknowledging you, or even just spending time supporting you, even if you're not aware of it. But they do really know what's going on. So if you've ever kind of felt like, again, I'm thinking of an example of this really loving dad who was on the other side, and he had been a dad and he had been a grandpa, and right not long after his passing, one of his grandkids that he was very close to got married. And then shortly after that, they had a baby, and the family he really just loved babies. He was that kind of a grandpa who wanted to hold the babies and was at the hospital for every single new baby. And I think the grandma even like made a special thing for every baby. So they were like that set of grandparents who really loved any little life coming into the family. And they were just so sad and wondering, like, does he know? And he was the one that told me they had a baby, not them. So he was saying, he was at the wedding. He gave some details about the wedding and what it was like, and something they did as a special, unique nod to respect him. And then he talked about the baby, and actually she was a little girl, but now they had also a little boy, and the little girl, they did something with a family name as part of her name, if I'm remembering correctly. So he brought specific information to validate, yeah, I know about her. Yeah, I spend time with her and the new little one. And yeah, this is how I play with them. And this is the book that they like to read. And they always read this book. It was like a book about an apple or something. Because I was like, does she tell a story about an apple all the time? Or there's a book she wants to read about an apple? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, that was her favorite book for like 2 years. And I was like, well, Grandpa is saying he really enjoyed reading that book with her and would sit with her when she was reading it. And it's those little details that have really helped me learn, oh, they do know what's happening. They do spend time with us and around us. They do often highlight that they give us private time. So it's not like they're creepers and peepers, right? They don't want to be around in the times you wouldn't want them around, but they're only ever a heartbeat away. So the moment you think, oh, Mom, she's right there with you. The moment you think, oh, Aunt Becky, they're right there with you. So the moment that you think of them, that you send love to them, that they pop into your mind, they're right there right then. So it's not like a far away place that they have to travel from to come visit you. They're around frequently, and many of them are saying hello. So if you're seeing something in the world, whether it's a name or a sign or whatever it is, and you immediately think of your person, it's okay to accept that that's a hello from them. And when you acknowledge it and say, oh, I know that's a joke from you, that's such a you thing to do, just be aware of it and acknowledge it. And then it will give them, it's not quite permission, but then they'll keep doing it. You'll see more and more and more and more the more you agree to it. So the last thing I want to touch in on, and I think this is maybe the most important message from Spirit that I continue to receive, and this is this idea of, and depending on their personality, some of them are very direct with this message. Others of them are softer and more suggestive about it. But essentially, it's stop waiting to start living the life you love. Stop waiting to quote unquote get there. Most of us at some time in our life have some version of this, and a lot of us have some version of this going on all the time, right? It's kind of the idea of like, oh, when I get that job, when I have my perfect partner, when I get married, then I'll be happy. Then I'll really start living my life. When I have this baby, when I, whatever it is for you, we have to live right where we are. Whatever that means for you, make the most loving choices for you, for yourself. Find ways to experience joy, to soak in all the beauty and awe, to realize the love around you that's already there. Because even if you're wanting to have a relationship, right, to call in a romantic partner into your life, you probably have love around you right now. And if you don't, that's where to start cultivating friendships, volunteer relationships. There was this project when I was in school that me and another class leader created where we would go and visit folks that were in a senior care center, and we just sat with them and listened to their stories. And they were so appreciative just to talk. That's love. So start noticing and appreciating the love around you right now, no matter what else is going on. I've experienced this message in so many profound ways from so many different souls on the other side, but maybe some of the most profound are those people that when they were here in a physical body, either for the majority of their life or even segments of their life, had extreme illness or challenge or pain or cognition limitations. And the way that they bring this message is like, what are you waiting for? Like, even if things are looking bleak, find a way to laugh, find a moment of joy, find a piece of art to appreciate. Look out at the beautiful sky and just stare at it. And I know maybe this sounds a little out there, but it really is this idea of like, enjoy the connection of the relationships that you do have. Take that art class, go see the ocean, like whatever it is for you, find ways working with whatever your circumstances are right now, but don't put off living or enjoying life or experiencing things or creating relationships because you're waiting for that perfect scenario, that perfect job, that ideal timing, right, is a big one for a lot of us. Sometimes it's, oh, when I have enough money saved, then I'll finally allow myself to, I don't know, buy a fancy sweater. And there are, of course, financial limitations that are real, but it doesn't mean we can't find ways to be living, loving, appreciating what we have, soaking it all in. Because again and again and again in this work, one of the beautifully tough pieces is this continual realization of how fragile life really can be, and that time is not guaranteed to any of us. Of course, we make plans and we think towards the future, and that's wonderful, but time's not guaranteed for any of us. So if we're waiting for some imaginary retirement period to enjoy anything at all, it's not the wisest way, is what I've come to learn from the other side. It's this encouragement to some of the people that I've met on the other side that have had some of the most simple lives with the least of means, let's just say, have been some of the most beautiful, expansive, appreciative, incredible souls. I've gotten to meet people, from all over the world, from all different time periods in our lives, and some people from even the most traumatic, tragic periods of time in our world. And even those people will articulate how, maybe they had one friend during a wartime that they were going through, or they had one, little thing that they played with, or even if it was something they kind of made themselves. So stop waiting till you get there to start living life and loving life, because this is our one wild and amazing, beautiful, messy life. And if we're waiting until we are, I don't know, better, bigger, smarter, richer to do the thing, we're waiting in vain, really is what it is. And kind of one of the ways I say it, I had someone in my life for a very long time that just refused to take any photos. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, you're a person, we're people. Like, we want to remember you in our lives to get in the damn picture. And this person just was so resistant to photos. And for me, sometimes I tell myself, like, today's the youngest you're ever going to be again. So if it's like, oh, I don't want to look bad in this picture, for example, like, why? This is the youngest you're ever going to be. This is the only time this exact moment is going to take place. So live it, right? So I am really working on this one in my life. I would love to hear ideas of how you're working on even just living a little bit more within your life. It doesn't mean you have to make the big drastic change, although it could. If you're, thinking, oh, I really want to try living in, I don't know, Canada for a year, or going to visit Alaska or Australia, whatever it is. If you're thinking about wanting to do something, like, certainly do it. But think about all the micro ways in life that you could just be living a little bit more. Are you taking in fresh air? Are you looking at nature? Are you appreciating artwork and beauty and deliciousness in all of its forms all around us? And especially those relationships and interactions that we have with other people. I want to expand that just a little bit, not just souls of people, but like our animals as well, because animals are often such important, intimate friends and family members in our lives. So I'm not leaving out the animals and the furry friends, but those relationships that we can have are so profound and so just expressive of our humanness over here. So really, don't wait for that perfect partner to have a group of friends that you love, that you can go to the things with, right? I just keep thinking of two examples. One is a woman who was on the other side. Her husband had passed many years before her, and she was just a little bit of a scared person. She just didn't love being away from home for too long. There was nothing clinical happening with her. Her mental health was fine. She just was not the most adventurous person, but would always talk about how she really wanted to go on a road trip. She really wanted to see a casino. She really wanted, there was these things that she really wanted to do. And from the other side, she had, her kids, and then she had grandkids, and she actually had some lovely relationships with some of these grandkids, and they would offer to take her, like, hey, grand, like, let us take you to the casino. You know what I mean? And she was so resistant and so scared. And there were a few times she did some bigger outings with them and things, but she was communicating from the other side and essentially sharing, like, I don't know why I didn't do all the things. I don't know why I resisted so much. I don't know what I was so scared of. And it was a sentiment of, like, I wish I had just said yes to so much more. And then I'm thinking of a different story, which I think this family will be okay with me sharing. It's a lovely story about this gentleman. His wife passed before him. It was pretty shocking because in this family, he would have been the less healthy of these grandparents, parents. And the wife passes much younger and very unexpectedly. And he goes on to live another, I think it was over 30 years without her. And when they had been together, she was the one who was very adventurous. She was the social calendar. She was the one creating the family get-togethers and planning the holidays and taking trips with other, friends of theirs, little outings and things. And she really was the social marriage. And as she was, in the hospital at the end of her life, she had told her husband, like, you're going to have to do this on your own. Like, I don't want you sitting home and wasting away. Cause he kind of would always say, oh, okay, like, I guess I'll go, or can I just stay home? Or he could be a little grumpus sometimes. And after her passing, I don't even know how many years after it was, but he started traveling the world. He saw so many countries, and it was part of what he was sharing with me in this reading, with his grandkiddo in my office, and was saying what wonderful, special memories those were for him. He, got to go to Europe with his family. They lived there together for a while. He got to see almost all of the countries in Europe. He got to go to Asia. He got to go to South America. Like there were all these places that he got to visit and tour. And he was showing, the things that he was interested in there, but he was articulating through this communication, through the emotions and through flashes of pictures, how this really changed his life, how he had two paths he could have chosen. He could have just stayed home and let the world pass him by and isolate himself. But instead, he chose to go out of his comfort zone and to do all of this wonderful travel with his family. It's cute because he told me he never remarried. He did have lady friends, is the way he said it. And he apparently was quite a charming, wonderful gentleman. He chose to live this life, whatever he was going to have of it after his beloved wife crossed over, and made just the most amazing memories with not only his own children, but their children, these groups of grandkids that he had. And his life was so much richer for it. So I just really love that story because it's just, in essence, what's available to all of us at any time. We are going down the path we're on, but it's like Led Zeppelin says, right? There's still time to change the road you're on. So please, from the bottom of my heart, know that I am offering all of these things that I've learned with love and with intention to just stir your thoughts a little bit about how could you be maybe living a little fuller in your life, or is there something you wanted to try or do, or taste the weird food, or go to the place you've not been, or see the artist at the museum, whatever it is. What is it that's been on your heart or stirring within you that you've wanted to try, that you've been putting off, or that you've been too scared, or that you've been saying, oh, I'll get to that when, right? So I hope that you have enjoyed learning a little bit about what I learned about as part of my work. And if you like this, I'm happy to do other topics like this because there really is so much that I learn from the spirit world just as a medium. Some of it's about the communication itself, but a lot of it are these deeper, more profound lessons, for lack of a better word, or knowings or bits of wisdom that really have colored and changed the way that I live, the choices I make, the way that I love, and how I choose to be just differently intentional. And again, no perfect people. I'm a work in progress too. So if you're feeling like, oh man, I've really been making some excuses in my life, and it's okay to it's okay to make another choice at any time. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. Let me know. If you are not already signed up for my free community healings, I'm still having one every single month. And I don't know about you, but I feel like we need both community and healing now, maybe more than ever. So if you feel so called, I would love it if you would join me. The link's in the show notes and on all of my bios everywhere. But if you go to the events section of my website, joyfulmedium.com, you will always also see all the upcoming events, including the free community healings and anything else I've got going on there. So I hope you will join me one of the sessions. Big hugs. Bye for now. Lots of love from inside Spirit Speakeasy.